Oh, thank you, Wes. What is this?
Eric Pierce, the firefighter at CEP.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, no, nobody has complained. The only person, David Haskell came to just talk to me about it. He was just really responsible guy. He sits, I know where he sits, to hunt. I know where he got his deer. But he came up, he sits with his back to the project.
Right.
And we did that before they, there's a bunch of people sit on that side of the railroad tracks, facing 113.
Yeah.
They sit on the other side of the railroad tracks. Because the railroad tracks are, yep. Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, folks, we'll get started. And we have a quorum. First thing we'll do is review and approve the 10/28/21 minutes.
I move we approve them.
I second. All in favor? Okay. All right. Thank you for that. And then, so we have a little bit more time on the agenda tonight because I got an email from the fellow that is looking to buy, Eric, that's looking to buy Nature's Wilderness, and the deal is a little shaky at this point. He doesn't know whether it's going to happen or not, so he decided to drive back to Arkansas, and he didn't feel solid enough about the deal to come in here tonight. It may be coming back on, but he said he's not going to come in here and take up our time until the ink is dry. So, did you know about that, Wes?
I don't know too much. I had good talk, sit down with him and his wife and Gary last week, and the information I mentioned about the camp he has down in Arkansas, I since then have learned he had sold that.
Yeah, because when he wrote to me, he said formerly, Beaver Lakefront Cabin, so it sounds like he wasn't involved in it, so he sold that.
He has sold it, and I guess it's just like when you sell a house or something as an investment, you have a certain time to turn the money over without claiming capital gains. So he has 180 days to do something with the money he had from selling that camp to reinvest it.
Yeah, it was interesting. He said it's possible the deal is back on, but I won't be asking for your time again until the ink is dry on the contract, just in case. The project will be contingent on being able to bring the campground up to at least the contemplated 162 space capacity, so I wanted to get off on the right foot with everyone involved and sure that it would be possible and probable. Wes and Jerry have made me aware of the general concerns of the community regarding traffic, and I think we'll make a good fit, blah, blah, blah. But, so there's a little bit of a catch-22 there, because, he can't be assured of 162 spaces, which I guess is like phase 2, until phase 3, until he actually comes before the planning board and we reopen and redo the CUP.
So part of our conversation was on the expansion into phase 2 and phase 3. He tends to want to go more towards glamping sites.
Yeah. This was interesting too. He said, I'm coming at this from owning a business that's open 24/7, 365, has a lot of traffic and a lot of customer service requirements to go with it. Frankly, I'm tired of the pressure that goes with a constant stream of new people and will be designing this project to minimize those requirements as much as possible, i.e., focusing more on seasonal RVs rather than transient guests. Hope the sellers and I can work something out, and I look forward to meeting you under more certain circumstances. That's pretty interesting because, you know, if it's phase 3 and 162 sites, and he tries to skew that towards seasonal sites where people come in and they use it like a camp. You know, they just park their RV there and it's there the whole season. And, you know, they get, some places get, you know, a couple thousand a month for that. And so on one hand, that would mean less camper traffic in and out, but it's also going to mean that for the summer months, there is you know, it's like a permanent summer expansion of the Baldwin population, which may have some implications. So,
you go to these places.
yeah.
Do the seasonal people really, I mean, they come up for the weekend and go home, or do they actually come and stay there, or what does there happen?
What I have seen is that they take a vacation there for at least a couple of weeks every summer, but then they're up most weekends.
I'm not quite sure how it works, but there were quite a few campers that would keep their RVs there all summer long and come and go on the weekends. I don't know, some of them even commuted from the campsite to their day job during the week.
Right. Yeah, I've seen that. So that'll be an interesting discussion, but that's where that's at, and they won't be here tonight. So he sounds like a really nice guy. So we have on the agenda tonight Sebago Road Solar, and then the Baldwin Fire Department to talk about solar project safety, and then Firefly Ridge. If we have a little bit of extra time, we'll discuss the update from Tuesday night, where we had a great dialogue on the approach to the comprehensive plan, and then we'll do a CEO update. But why don't we go ahead with Andrew and Larry and take us through the update to Sebago Road Solar. I want to highlight one issue for you to address, and that is that in these minutes that David did, one thing jumped out at me that I had forgotten. The board suggested that the applicant may have to plow part of Carl Burnell Road because it's not maintained by the town during winter. The 11% grade of that road, I think we got information last meeting that was navigable, but I was talking with Dwight, and Dwight drove truck his whole career, and I think you expressed some real doubts about how navigable that road would really be in the winter with that grade. So I think that's something we want to make sure we take a common sense approach to versus any scientific analyses, and just make sure that we have a plan that will avoid any accidents or trouble with that grade. Did I cover that clearly? Yeah. To get your point across, Dwight? Okay, take us through it.
Okay, as you know, we were first in here on October 14th when we filed the conditional use application. Went through that, the board had some questions and, requests for some additional information. We provided that, came back the last meeting on the 28th. I went through that stuff, at that time. There were more questions the last time and, identified some other information that, the board wanted to see, so we put that together. That was in the letter that dated November 5th that the board has, so that's what I'm going to focus on tonight, since we're kind of just doing this in sequence. For starters, looking at the site plan, you'll notice that the footprint of the solar array is different than it was before. It's more rectangular. It was up higher there. This is the actual 2 megawatt plan that Andrew had provided to me. We had actually a bit of a miscommunication between Andrew and our firm, and we had an older version of the plan. So this is in fact the latest plan, smaller footprint up there on the solar array. Everything else remains the same on the plan. So there are some other plan revisions which I'll get to in a bit. But that's kind of the most obvious thing as you look at it. Last time around, we talked about construction, traffic, and access to the site, and how trucks would be staged and scheduled in there to avoid conflicts. And there were suggestions and things talked about at that time, which we looked into and incorporated in the letter. One being scheduling deliveries an hour or 1 hour apart, so that trucks don't get backed up waiting when they're arriving at the site there, because there is a lot of materials that come in, particularly early on in the process, as you're aware and seen from the sites. And prior to the last meeting, I had gone out west to one of the active construction sites, and there's a lot of materials that come in, so definitely want to avoid the potential conflicts there. So it would be scheduling those an hour apart, radio contact with incoming trucks so that they know when the trucks, they're not going to be trying to come in when somebody else is coming out. If they arrive early, they need to find a place off-site to wait until their arrival time at the site, and that's really going to be the responsibility of the trucking company to find some place where they can legally pull over, whether it's 20 minutes away or whatever it is. They have to wait. We're not going to. We'll have a provision in the plan or condition on the plan that there would not be trucks waiting on Burnell Road or any other public ways in the town, just so that that'll be a contract. Beyond the plan, it'll be a requirement of the construction contract. As far as the access road grade, we talked about that a bit last time, and I had reached out to some folks that I've worked with quite a lot over the years at one of the larger contractors in Maine that's built more than 25 solar farms of all sizes in Maine and New Hampshire. Company Sargent Corporation out of Stillwater, and their operations people that have been on those sites, both on the solar projects and on the wind energy sites, which are typically ridgetop properties. They asked them that question, is a 10, 11, 12% access road grade workable for us loaded semi-trailer, particularly with the solar site? And he said they do it all the time. 11 to 12% is really the practical maximum for that, but it works. It has worked for them. If it's a well-compacted gravel surface, which is what this is designed to be, it's a 16-foot wide road, compacted to your point of winter conditions. That will have to be maintained. It'll have to be plowed, sanded, and salted, and maintained. And if there is an issue with on a given day with trucks getting in there, there'll be a heavy. What they've done is have a front end loader that can assist and give the trucks a pull if and when they need it on the site. So they have not had an issue with it, but they plan it and they maintain the roads, the access roads. They built these sites, you know, in Maine. One I'm thinking of is Kingsbury Plantation, where up on a ridge, and those access roads are quite steep, and the wind components are heavier than these roads. So you've got the turbines and the blades and the pylons and everything that goes with it. So those are I would rely on those folks in their opinion, and they've done a lot of that kind of work. And you know, I'd be happy to, you know, if there's more information needed there, we can certainly track that down. But that's talking with foremen and project managers on those projects in many locations in Maine and New Hampshire.
The sergeant put his own truck on?
Excuse me?
The sergeant put his own truck on?
When they haul their equipment in and out, they do.
No, but I mean, when they on 10-12% grade, do they use their own tractor and stuff? Do you know if they have to chain up or anything? So they don't use like a large car that's on, you know, hauling up the road?
Well, what they told me was that it's the road tractors are what are coming in, and they maintain the road for those tractors. And if there's an issue in cases where they have had a steep grade, they've had a big front end loader that they can hook on and assist them up the grade or portions of the grade. So, you know, it's not perfect, but it's, you know, you need to get the materials in there, and that's how we've done it. And you know, it's pretty much standard procedure for them on those projects. And they've built, you know, some big projects, and they're going back now and upsizing some, particularly New Hampshire, on the wind, both on the wind and the
He was falling
solar.
asleep. He was falling asleep.
So,
Slides are circling.
so that was,
Larry, one of the things I'd like us to do, and I got a little list here, I want to make a laundry list of things that we particularly want to focus on during the site walk. And
Walking up a grade.
yeah, and this, I guess, road grade issue, I know nothing about this kind of stuff. Handle an F-150 with a trailer or and that's about it.
But it's a different ballgame.
Yeah. So, but I've been through enough projects to know that at times we get engineering or professional independent evaluations of turning radiuses and intersection traffic and things like that. Does anybody think we need any kind of independent engineering evaluation of this grade issue or navigability during the winter or anything like that?
I talked to my forester about this because he lays out roads for a living.
Yeah.
And he said 11 to 12% is kind of the edge, but he said on a well-compacted surface, if they use, you know, this SD stone dust that he's got, the 1/4 inch minus, and or reclaim, you know, either way he was saying it, could do it. As I'm listening to this, you know, my thought is to think about what it is we want to achieve.
Yeah, the
And,
performance standard.
you know, what is the performance standard? And that's what I'm interested in. If they're willing to say they can build it with an 11 to 12% grade, why should I say they can't? You know, I mean,
11% is, in round numbers, I think we have something like 11.1%.
yeah, 11%. I mean, that's what I talked to my forester about, and I did that because, you know, he's getting logging trucks up that kind of grade, and so I thought he might be able to tell me something. Yeah.
So performance performance standard, this is something that we would, identify and delineate in the conditions for the CUP, that they would have to meet a particular performance standard for the grade and traction on Carl Road, is that what
Well, on
you're saying?
on the access road,
On the access road.
So it'd be something like, at all times, the applicant has to maintain the road such that an emergency vehicle can, reach the solar array. And so,
For the utility company, maybe.
for the utility company.
Great.
Okay. Any more questions on that?
A little comment. Not being an expert, I do know you'll need something, a hard packing gravel, anything like
It's a lot.
gravel or sand, won't bear it.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
And other than that, you're delivering 4 or 5 tractor trailers of panels and 4 tractor trailers of posts and iron, you're done.
Well, and schedule those when, you know, if there's an issue with a weather window that's bad, you know, they'll have
Well,
to
you know,
schedule.
the delivery's not gonna go out for 9 months or so, you know.
Exactly.
2 months.
And we're not gonna go in the winter too.
Yeah.
your, application that I was looking at said you intend to start fourth quarter of 22? Okay.
Yeah, but we wouldn't build it if the winter came early, we obviously would be, it could be put off until the following spring.
That's not my problem.
It's not, you got it, but we're not gonna build in the winter, you know what I mean? It
Yeah.
might be.
No, I was just, wondering, you started in the fourth quarter, it seems late in the season.
It's because of the utility process, like the next level of the utility permitting process, that their tentative delivery, I think, gets to sometime in Q3, when they finish up their, like, final review.
Yep,
Giving enough time to go from that point to mobilization, planning, scheduling, delivery.
yep.
Tentatively, that's kind of where we're landing right now.
I got it, thank you, Andrew.
And then, the other item that we talked about, I almost went over backwards, was, some, questions on the plans that rolled into, we made some revisions to the plan. One was, there was no gate shown on the plan, so we've now shown a gate down off of Burnell Road, I think it's about 75 feet in off of Burnell Road, on the access road. That's been added. We've added, boundaries of the, shade management area up around the solar array, and I don't know if we sent you guys color plans or not, but you can see this green area, light green area here is the shade management area, and, see that there. So you've got the solar array, you've got go ahead.
So I'm concerned on the northwest corner, that straight line there, where it meets the boundary line of the property.
Over here?
No, to your left, there, right there.
Yep.
And what I'm concerned about, and this is helping you or helping the landowner, is my concern, not as a planning board member concerned you're doing a bad thing. It's that you need to have a right of way to access this other land, remaining land. You don't want the remaining land to be landlocked. Somebody would not want that.
Yeah, so as you can see there, that the fence line is the physicality of the footprint. The shade management is obviously, as it sounds, where the trees would be cut, the stumps would be left. So there would be, we have to make sure, to your point, that we're not, blocking the back property. So there would, within our arrangements with them, that's why we designed that way. So that way, he can still access the back of the property.
So we have in our ordinance that in order to build a house, you have to have a 60-foot wide right of way.
Okay.
I don't know what that green shaded area is.
Is that 100 on that side?
That's 100 on that side.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
We're
Yeah, if they've got a right of way through there, great.
Yeah.
That's all, I was just concerned,
This is a good point. Yeah, by design, I remember.
cause a problem later on.
Yep, well, appreciate that.
Yeah, and that currently is not shown on the plans. Well, that's something we'll need to add.
Great.
Right away.
But it's good to know that that's our constraint, we design to make sure there's not room for everybody to cope with.
Yeah, and I guess that's something we ought to look at, is where's the best place for that, and there may be a spot on the access road that's closer, or, you know, if there are, you know, issues that,
This has been signed off on by the landowner, to your example, we just want to make sure that we're finishing up our design, and we can still access the back of the property, so he had to sign off on this before we brought it to your attention.
so, in any case, what we've added to the plans, I think you may have colored versions in your 11x17s as well. You see, they printed color for you guys, that's the time one. But anyway, 100 feet on the, basically the southwest, 50 feet on the easterly side, and then I think it's 10 feet up here. Now, that's all in addition to the 10-foot mowed strip around there. So that shade management area is simply cutting the trees at ground level, not disturbing any, well, not taking out any other vegetation, letting that essentially kind of naturalize, and then 10 years down the road, depending on if things grow up and start shading the panels, then those could be maintained over time, and that would be written in there. That shade management area is proposed to be an easement as opposed to within the lease area. So then the other question that came up was to show a hard line on the plan of where the actual lease area is. So what we've delineated is a 30-foot wide access corridor coming in on the access road, and centered on the access road, and then up at the panel area, a 10 feet outside of the fence, which essentially takes in that mowed area. So that is now labeled on the plans. Now, in addition to that, you've got easements for the shade management that I just mentioned. There's also easements for grading and drainage down along the access road. So those will all be delineated. They are delineated on the plans now, and they would all be dimensioned and recorded on the plan. And then to the topic, to the questions about how does that interface with someone who potentially might buy the remaining land, and those easements, give rights to the solar developer to maintain the property as needed, and anyone buying the land, of course, will have to know that right up front, that that's part of the program. Same way with the temporary storage area, temporary truck turnaround, anything like that that's outside the lease area would be included in these easements that go right along with the property. Those items have been labeled and shown on the plans, and I think we appreciate those comments. Those are good suggestions. We probably figured it out ourselves anyway as we got to finalizing it, but helpful comments, and good to get that in there now. The other question that came up was, what is the seeding mix to be used? And I couldn't find it at the time, but that was already noted on sheet 4, which is the erosion control plan, and I've indicated where that note is on there. And it's a standard conservation kind of mix that doesn't require frequent mowing. So that was the items relating to the plans. I tried being the only one here taking notes for myself. I hope I didn't miss anything. If I did, I'm sure you'll tell me. And we'll make sure that we catch all of those things. So, we believe the package is complete. We've tried to address everything that's listed in the conditional use permit applications, and in addition to the materials that the board has asked for. And we're hoping that you could, we're going to have a site walk on Sunday, and we're hoping that we could get to the point where we can schedule a public hearing and have a discussion about that. Looking forward to when that might be able to take place. So with that, there were also questions, and I'm not going to get into detail on them, but we also provided 3 additional pages in the New Hampshire Solar Garden package about the sale of, explaining the sale of the property, joining the lease area, battery storage, and decommissioning. So if there are any specific questions on that, I'm gonna, pass those off to Andrew, but those are in the package that we sent. So that's all I've got, so be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
The battery storage was very interesting, the way that came about. You know, I've been reading in the paper about all these delays and increased costs with CMP, you know, for the power transfer and the substations and everything, and so it seemed like the battery storage was a way to regulate that transfer of power to lower the cost of the substation interface.
Yeah, I mean, so there's two components to that. The first one is each of the substations that are having multiple solar projects planned for have triggered the ISO New England, you know, the greater grid that operates all of New England's grid system, to review how these solar projects are pushing power down the lines and then up into the big lines. Usually that just typically happens through the substation. So that's one component of the review process that's been taking place. That started getting triggered, you know, a year ago now. At the local level, our project, we had gone through the local study process with CMP, initially as a larger system size before some of the state rules changed on us. We talked about last time in front of you all. So we had it restudied, or we're preparing to have it restudied, but the information that we received from that initial study was, I think I'd say, like $6.3 million substation upgrade, which, you know, we have to have a project 15 times larger to satisfy that cost in our world. We took that information, I went back to my electrical engineers and worked with CMP a little bit to get some feedback to integrate the batteries into it, mostly because the other projects you guys have seen that are contemplated to come online, one obviously is online, we know that, but they have to treat them as in a silo, where they have to assume that every project they've approved is going to come online. So when we're the next guy in line, they're going to assume that the other 3 projects ahead of us go online. If one of them fell off, then our battery solution, we kind of happened to finalize this week with our electrical engineers and getting the CMP process started with this solution. Might not be needed, but we can't take that. We don't have that luxury. We have to kind of plan as if all the other projects are going to come online. So to your point, what it's really doing is allowing us to stay underneath the threshold of what what the physical aspect of the lines of the substation support. Because as we all know, solar is intermittent power. It's creating power during roughly a 4 or 5 hour window on average through the day. And they're concerned that there's going to be too much power being put on the line during that period, so there's only this much left. So what we're going to do is we're going to take that space and build to that level, and then we're going to use the batteries as our supplement way to charge them up. And then during the part of the day when the other projects are turned off, we can keep the power moving. So it just kind of takes that curve out of it and kind of levels it off, so we can push the power out into the line, so we don't impact any of those kind of reliability, safety, other things that the CMP does. So that's my explanation. I'm not the expert in this world. I'm learning. You know, we do a bunch of these in Massachusetts that we've done that are required under state law to do this on, but this is more of a technical solution based on what we learned from the CMP study. So that's why that came up somewhat unexpected. You know, came up to us, otherwise we would have been having to cancel the project into that topic.
If I could say, Andrew, always ask for more than you want, don't ask for less.
Right. Yeah. So and to your point, that feedback we did, we took a little extra time than I would have liked to have been maybe a couple weeks ago, had everything moving with CMP, but we had to take a little extra time with the manufacturer's equipment to understand how it would work, have our electrical engineer verify everything, get everything signed off, so he could stamp it himself and size it a little bit bigger, you know, make sure we had that we wouldn't have the luxury if one of the other projects fell off, unless it happened like tomorrow. We wouldn't have the luxury of going, we have to start the whole process all over again if, you know, the third project in line ran into something from a permitting or civil engineering perspective, that we didn't know about, and then they pull their permit, so, or their project out. So we're gonna move forward with this plan. We're gonna present to you guys, which we've done about, you know, some of the fire code compliance, you know, the things that they are, some ideas on, you know, what they do for these projects for if there ever was a fire. You know, they have this dry pipe system that allows the fire then to come up and connect into this system away from the battery so they can, you know, flush the batteries with a lot of water if they need to. So there's a mechanism for these that create safety, but also has to do other things that, again, are a little bit on my pay grade, but, you know, was verified to me that they meet these requirements for safety for the firefighters. So that's the stated, the share here.
Yeah, I thought that was an interesting page, and when I sent that out to everybody, I included this document to the guys from our fire department, Bruce Crawford and Owen Sprague, because of the interesting last bullet point that units are equipped with a dry pipe systems that allow for fire personnel to attach a fire truck to the water pipe from a safe distance away to put out a fire if one ever occurred. And I thought they were going to be here tonight for a discussion of safety evaluation of solar projects in general, but they're not here, so maybe I didn't communicate that properly with them. I know they had kind of asked to be here, but I'm sure we're feeding them information as we get it and stuff, but we'll set that up later. But I was glad that you called that out.
Yeah, I think it would be probably in all of our best interest. I think as this, you know, law matures and finding this place with you guys as far as feeling like this is a good project to move forward with it, I would suggest that, you know, we get the appropriate, much smarter people than myself on the manufacturer side to really get with or provide any type of, because again, a lot of this part of our business is newer components of the industry, so it's ever evolving. So I would like to be able to offer to bring the resources that are behind me, connected with the fire department, so they can ask all their technical questions. We can make sure that when this project goes to construction, there's proper procedures or information that they are comfortable with. You know what I mean? So I just want to offer that as far as, like, I'm happy to bring any of the resources that we have to the table, but I just want to get the high level stuff, you know, to you folks, so you knew that we're understanding the concerns and we're, you know, we want to address them, you know, as they go.
So we're all ready for the site walk on Sunday. Any issues that anybody wants to talk about before we have the site walk? Okay. Just for planning, since we're not going to have a meeting on Thanksgiving, our next planning board meeting is actually on December the 9th. So, assuming, which is always dangerous, that the site walk goes well on Sunday, we would want to get the public hearing scheduled. Does the board feel that it's appropriate at this point to put a notice in the Shopper's Guide this Wednesday, the 17th, assuming things go well on the 14th, that, well, we'd have to put the notice in tomorrow, so, but to call a public hearing for the 9th?
Sure.
Okay. Sure. All right, then let's do that. We'll do we need to vote on that?
I think you've heard everybody say yes.
Everybody vote.
Good, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he did too.
So we're gonna have the public hearing for the Sebago Road Solar on December 9th, and it'll appear in the shopping guide, on Wednesday the 17th. And Andrew and Larry, you'll be there on Sunday?
He'll be there for me. I'm going to be on call, yeah, of course you're traveling on Sunday, unfortunately, but we'll make sure he's there, and I'll have my phone on there.
Okay, good.
what do we want to see? What do we want to do?
Well,
Do we want to park down on Carbonell Road and walk up? Can we drive our F-150s up? Is there a road? Yeah, yeah.
Probably, park it, at the end, and kind of walk it out the corner, so, yeah.
So park down at the bottom?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say so.
I would say so. I drove my Tacoma, the budding property originally, up that trail road, and my wife was in the car, and she was not pleased with me.
What wives are not pleased with those things?
No, I thought it was fun, I was having fun, but she was like, really, you're gonna get back down the hill? I'm like, yeah.
We'll go together, Andy, next time, okay?
There, I would suggest by parking the bottom and walking.
Yeah, there's no need to try and drive up there too far.
Generally, when we do these things, we don't know how many people from the public are gonna show up, but is somebody gonna be there with, cones to identify where we're gathering and, you know, where we're gonna walk up and things like that?
Yeah, I'll get there ahead of time.
Okay. And,
Have it, so people know where to pull in.
I think the last time we did it, for the one across the street off Deacon Road, they had an easel with, boards there so people could see, you know, visualize the property before we walked it and stuff, so.
If I had to bring coffee donuts too.
None of our spot on.
Sorry.
Or Wayne, thank you.
Does that, answer the questions you had, David?
What, when we get up to the top, what do we want to see? It's Sunday, you can't bring your gun. What time is it?
10 o'clock.
Well, we certainly want to check out the road grade and, this, inflection point, here, and then, you know, get a sense of the, you know, the space and where Sebago starts, and, I don't think there were any, you know, like on some of the others, we were concerned about, vernal pools, and I don't think there was a vernal pool issue here. You know, on some of the others, there was a visibility issue that, you know, we needed to try to, work out, and, you know, the town road and everything. I don't know whether any of those are relevant here.
Well, that may be something we want to, what does the view look like? And if you see what the view looks like, you can see who's looking back at you.
Did letters to the abutters go out?
No. I don't do others, just, we didn't talk about it, too.
Well,
We went by it. I think everybody's here.
The only one that would be other than that is each side and that other property is forward.
Who's the, person on
One
Carl
sand
Burnett?
gravel owns one side of it,
That's in Sebago.
and you still have to notify them.
You know, they're in Sebago?
They notified us about
Are they supposed to notify non-town?
I didn't think if you don't live in Walden, you count.
No, not really.
No.
So it'd be, I think there's two people. There's two people. Who's the, we can call them.
yeah, could,
We have Danielle running up and just have West Orleans.
yeah. Or as long as we contact the abutters before, you know,
Yeah.
and if anybody has a problem and they can't make it, then we're gonna have to scramble.
Yeah. Do you have contact information for the, person who has the property on Carver now, that's beneath you?
Between the site,
Where we're gonna try to get access.
yes.
What's your,
I don't know, I'm thinking
Natasha?
Natasha Gaines, it's not the one you're thinking of.
We tried to get,
It's not the one I'm thinking of.
we're gonna highlight.
But that's what it says on the thing there. I
yeah,
don't
as a
know.
general proposition, that would be the.
Richard Carey owns, used to own the one. Actually, I think Richard Carey owns the one on the other side. Unless they sold it.
Well,
Everyone, everyone's
yeah, Joe and I can cover you on this for the public hearing.
Yeah.
Public hearing, you know.
Because I can't get in here and
During
get
that,
it.
yeah, we can, we'll make
Do it
sure
all on the
that,
computer at home.
You can?
Yes. It's under, go to townofbaldwin.org, or baldwinmaine.org, and go under, assessing, and then you've got the commitment book.
Yeah.
The map and page. Yeah.
and then if you send, all you have to do is send the addresses, the names and addresses to Debbie, and Debbie and Danielle will get the letters out.
Because Danielle used to have a program where she could press a button and do it, but the program proved to be wrong. It messed up. I mean, my property had this big wedge taken out. For no reason.
You guys,
If you ask Danielle, she may be able to open the phone number too.
Okay. I'll call some, yeah, I can call.
okay.
Good with that?
We're good.
Thanks, John. Appreciate all the feedback. I will say, the help that you guys provided to get this kind of road, very much appreciated, because we didn't want to get what the other guys did, and then have to keep asking us to come back. We appreciate helping us streamline it, so thanks, guys. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, in terms of what we want to look at, you know, I remember from what we were talking about before, we should really focus on where the landings and the offloading and the point of interconnection and those things are going to be, because they were all topics, so, hopefully that's what we
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, we lay down there, is we do the trucks turn around, that sort of thing, yeah.
Yeah. You know, you have to take it to.
Really?
I just think it's always good to think about that a little bit of time. Take care of it. What are we doing now? So what time is the agenda?
All right, thank you.
Talking to Jeff?
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.
Dick Eaton?
Yep, okay.
We're all friends.
My turn?
Okay.
Okay, now we're gonna talk about Firefly Ridge.
Yep. Okay, my name is Dick Eaton, I'm the plant surveyor. The owners are Bill and Nancy Harris. They're medically, they're not doing as well. Nancy's been in the hospital for the last 10 days. She broke a bunch of ribs. And Bill's had a couple heart attacks. He's had bypass, but he's taking medication, so it's not really good for him to travel around too much anymore. He's in his 80s. And so this became an issue, and he called me to please take care of it, so I'm doing.
The stress of seeing that Fricker would definitely put him right over the edge.
Yeah. But anyways, I first surveyed the property back in '91, it was the old Sanborn farm. Later on, Bill, probably about 20 years ago, bought it and put in I think a 7-lot subdivision. And that was probably, I'm just guessing, about 15 years ago. I have the old copy of it, so you can see the whole piece of property. This is the original subdivision, 2 plans, and it had, his Firefly Lane right here and the lots, and then this was the remaining land. And, I guess, because of the ordinance, or because it was labeled a lot 7, so whatever you do, you have to go through revised subdivision or amended subdivision. And, just, when it happened, first time we went, Joe, we changed the right-of-way so Joe Pierce could have access to his lot at the end of, Firefly Lane. That was maybe 10 years ago, something like that.
Yeah.
And, we did the amended subdivision then for that. About 4 years ago, Bill sold the last lot, I think it was number 4, to a Mr. Reynolds, Mr. and Mrs. Reynolds, and they wanted extra land, and they bought, about 5 acres. I have a copy of it right here, on this one right here. So they bought that extra land. I did mention it, and he says, oh no, it's gonna be okay, don't have to worry about anything, just changing the boundary line. So we did that was about 4 years ago, and then, a year ago, David Blaze approached Bill, and he wanted to have a piece of property on the river, okay? And so, I said, check it out. He said, no, it doesn't have to go through subdivision. And
Who said that?
the,
Wes?
Wes, yeah, he went to Wes, and I understand, I don't blame Wes or anything. I'm doing a couple other surveys in Baldwin, one's a 90-acre piece, I'm cutting out 10 acres. It doesn't have to go through subdivision, because it was never part of the subdivision, that's, well, I'm doing another one, 6 acres, cutting out 2 acres, and that one's not going through the subdivision, but it's just this one here. So I understand how you can get suckered into that, and this is what happened. About a month ago, they told Bill that he'd have to go and rectify this, maybe, I guess, have amended subdivision for these 2 lots. So that's why I'm here today, to go through the process. There's one thing I did notice that maybe have corrected, that piece I sold for Dave Blaze, or Bill sold to Dave Blaze, had a 50, no, I had a 60-foot line, okay, no, I had it right. So it is a 60-foot right away, and that's just for his driveway to his property.
Could I see that?
This
Where
one
it
here?
shows the Blaze property
Yeah.
and the right of way to get to the Blaze.
Yes, this is the right of way, it's basically over the current 4-wheel drive. Just like a 4-wheeler type trail that they go over, it's there.
So we're talking lot 7A?
Yeah, lot 7A. This is the end of Firefly Lane.
Yep.
And then this is where your little right of way goes to yours, and then this goes all the way.
So I will say I got spoken to by somebody in the subdivision today
Yes.
who said, please don't give them access through Firefly Lane. And what they talked to me about was, who's gonna plow the road in the winter, and we've got enough problems with the amount of landowners we've got right now, and we don't wanna confuse it with more people. How are we gonna do this? And they were very concerned about maintenance of the road, upkeep, expenses, and they cited, what's the name of the one here off of Route 11? Glenwood Acres, and the problems that the town has experienced because of Glenwood Acres. And they don't want to become another Glenwood Acres. So they're really, really, really concerned about that. So, if your guys come in this way?
That's where he's coming in now, but that's not quite a legal right of way. It's just, everybody's been using it, and I couldn't never find anything in writing on it, and, so.
Well, can we back up just a little bit?
Okay.
So what's the actual subdivision? Is this the original subdivision?
This is the original subdivision, there's 2 sheets. There's one, showing just this part here. This is River Road right here.
Yeah.
And I think that lot 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, there's like 5 lots right here.
Yeah.
And that's it. And this was lot 7.
Oh, wait, hold on. So the subdivision is all 7 lots, right? Is this the mother lot? Is that the?
Yeah, this is the mother lot.
And there's 2 maps. What's the other map?
It's a blow up section
Okay.
of
Okay.
this.
This is a blow up of that one.
Right.
Okay, no,
No, this is just
that's
one.
probably the blow up.
We've got all different survey.
Okay,
Yeah.
so this is the,
This is the original
this is
subdivision.
the original
It
subdivision.
has 2 sheets. The other sheet just has a
that's
bigger
cool.
scale showing more detail of
So
it.
this is the mother lot.
This is the mother lot.
Okay. And so from this, the lot number, which lot was expanded when the Reynolds
Oh,
bought?
right here, Reynolds, right here, that's right here.
Yeah, that's over there.
That's right here. Yep, see here, here's the Firefly Lane right here.
So it's lot 4?
Yes, lot 4, the Reynolds bought it, and they bought all this extra land right here.
So it's what you have kind of penciled in there.
Yeah,
right, okay.
Yeah.
So that was the first illegal
Yeah.
transfer.
Correct.
Okay. So then, now,
Illegal transfer?
illegal,
Illegal.
yeah, because you can't subdivide a subdivision without getting permission. There was no permission for the 5.4 acres being transferred, right?
For both lots.
Yeah. Okay, so that was the first one that needs to be rectified.
Mm-hmm.
And then now, has the second lot been sold? The
Yeah.
one
A year ago.
a year ago, okay.
Yeah.
And that is down,
That would be
That'd be
down
here.
in here. Right. Correct.
because the river's here.
Yep. Pretty much out of the river and
And Josiah Pierce owns that.
that's Joe owns that.
Do we have any current blueprints or maps of how it is now with these additional lots, that are in there? The ones
Just
here, the one up
just
there?
what you see right here on these 2 maps.
Like, so that's the one that has the Reynolds.
Yes.
So this one here has the Reynolds, right, has the Reynolds, so they bought this and this.
Oh, I see, yeah.
And then this has the one that's down here is this right here. So is it that the edge right there?
That's the edge of the lot, yeah.
Is this, so this,
It's road
this road doesn't exist yet?
Does exist.
It
No,
doesn't?
It just
Part
a
of
bit.
it does, part of it does.
Part of it, yeah.
This is just cleared land. This is not a road. I don't know where road turns into just cleared land.
It was cleared, it was, seems like the best place to put it. Yeah.
How long is that road roughly?
It's not a road though.
But,
It's not.
say if it wasn't a road, how long would it be?
Yeah.
Yes, we had a lot. I mean, is it 100 feet on that scale, is that what that is?
1 to 80.
Got that up all these.
I'd say close to 1,000 feet maybe.
So where's the utility gonna come in?
Right now, we're not putting utilities in there, it's gonna be, solar panel off the grid.
Well, so that's the thing, is if we approve this
2,000 feet.
without utility, you can't put utility in. Like you-
Well, I mean, the utility would be going on the right of way. I mean, when I wrote up the easement for it, it says including all utilities, above and below ground.
Okay, so the utilities would come in this way, they wouldn't come in this way.
That's correct.
Okay. So what are you gonna do with the rest of this?
Bill does not want to do anything more. He's all done. It's just, he's 80, doesn't want to, he did not even want to be in this position, but now he is, and so he's just rectify the issue and move on, and so that's.
Because this kind of defeats the whole purpose of the subdivision ordinance, to cherry pick this property and not really deal with that, and have this kind of ad hoc road coming
Mhm.
through. you know, this is gonna have to be up to town standard, like
Is this gonna be for one house?
Well, but it's an internal road on a subdivision, you can have 6 or 7 other houses here eventually.
But that would have to all be approved.
Right, but, yeah, that's the whole subdivision ordinance is, if you do something like this, like, you have to plan for the entire project. I mean, it kind of defeats the whole purpose of the subdivision ordinance, to stop this ad hoc creation of, you know, you're kind of bastardizing the process, like, all this land is not used, but this one is, you know, this cherry-picked property, which is the nicest property for somebody. I'm not saying you can't do it, it's just,
Well, I put it in the road, if you look at it, it's a good place. It's way in the future after everybody else, that's not a bad spot to put the road right in there to have all access to more developing in the future.
Maybe you have 80 other acres here,
Right.
so I can see a house here, here, here,
Yeah.
here, here. So, at what point do you say they have to put it up to town standards? Is it once you do this one?
I think
That one?
is it what's in the, I don't know what's in the ordinance, if after you get 2 houses on it, it's gotta
Major
go?
subdivision.
Yeah,
It's a
it has to be
major-
up to town standards, right?
And, you know, I've already got people on this road objecting, do they have to bring this road up to town standard?
That road was up to town standards when we first built the road, and built it.
And you can get permission to cross the CMP.
You have to be 200, 100 feet from the pole. And then, yeah, actually, the land is owned by Bill, CMP has an easement.
Okay.
I mean, like I said, Bill does not wanna do any more to it, and probably, you know, it'll be passed on to, he's got 3 daughters, I don't know what they're gonna do. So, anything that has to go would be considered, you know, something additional would be up the game on a major subdivision or whatever you want. This is where it exists right now.
So no development has been done on that last lot that was sold? Nothing has been physically done with it?
There's a little cabin on
Oh,
the end.
so somebody bought that piece of property in the last 2 years, was it?
About a year ago.
A year ago, and they built a cabin on it already?
Yeah.
And they accessed
They
to
come in
Riley
through the-
Interval Road?
Yep, they come in through the Interval Road. Riley's Intervale Road, I think.
Riley
Yeah.
Interval.
Remember when I took like 2 months off this summer? Had to do things like this. Very frustrating. It's very frustrating when things just say, oh yeah, you can do whatever you want, and then we're looking at something like this.
Yeah, I mean, this is exactly what the subdivision ordinance is supposed to stop.
Well,
Like you couldn't create a worse situation.
keeps happening over and over and over again.
Well, I guess the question now is, we have a pretty good idea of where we are at, but now, what is the cure?
I wonder,
In Article 9, revisions to approved plans. An applicant for a revision to a previously approved plan shall, at least 10 days prior to a scheduled meeting of the board, request to be placed on the board's agenda. So here we are. If the revision involves creation of additional lots or dwelling units, which it does, the procedures for preliminary plan approval shall be followed. And then there's some submissions, which I think we have some of, but that really takes us back to Article 7, preliminary plan for a major subdivision. So what the subdivision ordinance is telling us is that now we need to go back to Article 7 and work through the preliminary plan for a major subdivision.
so, but Matt, that doesn't tell us what we should do if the law has been violated. I mean, that, I think, is the concern that we're looking at. I would like to hear, at minimum, from Maine Municipal Association Legal Department about this. If not, from David Lord.
So, was this permission given in writing, or just a verbal type thing, you know, or, you know, you can go ahead and sell that piece of property, or?
He went to get the building permit from town of Baldwin, and the Sauk River corridor had to get permission from them.
Who's he?
The owner, David Belays.
The owner of the 6 point whatever.
Yeah, the one on the river, the one on the river.
I mean, I kind of understand, you know, the piece that was bought by somebody that bought it. I mean, that's gray to me, but this other piece should not have been sold. So, I mean, not that we're gonna unsell it, but it's happening over and over and over again. Different reasons, but it totally, you know, why we have a subdivision ordinance.
That's why I want to hear from Maine Municipal. They may have experienced this sort of thing and be able to give us some advice.
Yeah.
I need advice.
That's a good idea.
Well, what does selectmen say, like, somehow this has happened, so, what are you guys thinking on that?
It's interesting that we've had a couple of discussions in the last week, I think, about what happened when land gets transferred in a June, right?
Right.
We had a
talked
Tuesday
about it
night.
today, which is, all you need is two people with, common intent to sign the paper and it's done. So I don't know that you're gonna back out the sale of the property.
No, we just need to stop it from happening in the future, because it's happened this year at least a few times.
Yeah, right.
And what's the solution to that problem?
There's a number of stop points, I think, we talked about before, which is somebody's bought a piece of property and now they want to develop it, right?
Right.
They come to the CEO and say, I would like a building permit. If the CEO had some kind of a list or something that says, this piece of property is part of a subdivision and X, Y, Z, then maybe it could get stopped at that point. But I have found no list of subdivisions. In fact, I just emailed Matt, discovered that I live in a subdivision. And the same issue has come up through my neighbor trying to get a refinancing of his property. And
That's something surprised title companies don't catch
the
on.
title company discovered that I had bought a half of an acre from my neighbor, and, you know, the change to the subdivision didn't come through the planning board. So there's internal processes here in the town that maybe can catch these things before they get too far, before guys put money into building a house or something. But we need to update our systems.
So Bob, the code enforcement officer works for you.
Right.
And if you were to tell the code enforcement officer that he should put such a map together, then you might get the map.
He might, but here's the question. Where did you get his data? I've been into your files, and I don't see anything in there that says this is a subdivision, that's a subdivision. It's very difficult to build that from scratch. And,
Yes.
and like I say, I only discovered that my property is part of a subdivision because my neighbor asked, and I'm thinking, what are these people up about? And I went back to 1988 and found that my aunt had subdivided the property with 3 lots. And
Well, I think it's different. I mean, yes, I agree with what you're saying, but I think it's different. So the property that my family owns in North Baldwin, I bought a piece of property, you know, it's being subdivided into 2 other lots. It's there's rules, I guess, is like my point is, I can buy more land off that same piece of land without calling it a major subdivision because I had bought it. There are exclusions like family members, things like that. You abutted the property that you bought a half an acre of. That's different than, this was a subdivision that had to go to the planning board.
Yeah, well, I mean,
And then there's this mother lot, I mean, we just had the same problem with the other subdivision that we've been dealing with. It's just,
but there's several stoppers, right, in the whole process. One is attorney. People are doing land transfers, right? You have an attorney that works for the buyer, or one works for the seller, and you would think that they would be savvy enough to pick up on issues like subdivisions and, when you can and can't transfer, minimum lot sizes, et cetera, et cetera. So that's one stopper place. The next stopper place would be when they come to actually develop it. At our level, at the CEO stopper level, we don't have the data.
I just think that's a cop out. Like,
Okay.
everybody knows that Firefly is a subdivision. Like I've, you know, I just think it's a cop out, frankly.
We're not talking about just Firefly.
No.
We're talking about in
No,
general.
but today we're talking about Firefly.
I know,
And
but
that's
the
like
question-
the one subdivision in town that I think everybody knows exists.
But the question wasn't just Firefly, it was a generic question. I think that was his.
it was kind of my question, but we are talking about Firefly and the fact that it's a subdivision. It went before the board, it was a major subdivision. We may not have a list of them yet, but
Yeah.
I know that we've all been around here long enough to know, you know, no, okay, well,
You know,
yeah.
But I think
the
it shouldn't be our fault. I guess I think this is Matt and my frustration. Hey, I don't want to speak for you,
No,
but
I-
my frustration
I'll
is,
talk about
so we have this problem presented to us. Clearly, there's a violation of the code. And so it shouldn't be our problem to fix it. You know, they should, you know, if people have to sue people, then people have to sue people, but you know, it shouldn't be our problem to say, okay, well, we'll fudge this, and we'll
It's okay
fudge
for you.
that, we'll kind of make this look okay. You know, the ordinance has been violated, and so, you know, if they want to come to us and do a proper subdivision, that's great. But I really am getting tired of just kind of fixing other people's problems. Like, this is not the solution. This is in violation of the subdivision ordinance, to lop off a property here, to put in kind of an ad hoc road, and I'm not, no offense to you, I mean, you did a fine job, it's not, this isn't your issue. But like, we have 80 acres off this road, I mean, you know, we have to treat it like a major subdivision, like it has to meet all the standards, it has to like I just get tired of fixing the problems that have been created by somebody else's error. And it's not, you know, sure, lawyers should have figured it out, title companies should have figured it out. But that doesn't mean the town should try to fix it for them.
And the other thing too is, and I'm just being devil's advocate here, but, okay, so we sold one piece of property, and the owner that's 80 years old right now has no intention of selling other pieces of property. Well, somebody's gonna inherit that property at some point, and probably the person that inherits it is gonna wanna probably sell a lot of it, because they probably won't have any interest in living there, in my guess. And so they're gonna wanna sell off a piece or two of property, or the whole thing, and, you know, what happens when they come back again, and, you know, we sold another piece of property, we wanna put this road in, is that okay?
So I saw a former chair of the board, whenever somebody made a statement like we have no intention of selling the land, put right in the condition, no land will ever be sold out of this property ever again.
But that only works until the next person sells it. We're like, oh, you sold it, okay, well, let's try to figure out
built
the
the house on the wrong
solution.
piece of land.
Jeez, Louise,
Yeah.
we'll help you figure it out how to fix it. it just gets tiring, that's all. And like, you know, at a certain point, we just have to say, you screwed up, and you gotta go figure it out. We're not gonna solve the problem for you. And it sucks that this guy is an older gentleman who's in poor health, but, you know, we treat everybody the same, don't we? I mean, it's just, I don't know, it's just getting tiring. That's what's been frustrating me for 2 or 3 years is we're trying to fix other people's problems.
Yeah, I think we can let it rest at this point.
So,
Yeah.
it seems,
It felt good to get that out though, Pat.
it seems that we have 2 issues to deal with. One is the problem of why this keeps happening, what we can do about it, how we can try and make sure that it doesn't happen again. Do we get any advice from MMA? So let's, you know, that's one issue. The other issue is just and it's somewhat related, but it's a kind of a common sense practical issue, is that we do have to deal with this. We do have to try and fix it, to be realistic about it. And the reason is that this was brought to us by a resident of Firefly Ridge. Glenn Haynes is the one.
He was a former code enforcement officer.
Right, who brought this whole thing to us. And the people that live in this subdivision and the abutters and the people of Baldwin are relying on the planning board and the code enforcement officer and the selectmen, certainly to not let problems like this happen, but once they do, we do have to fix it. So, you know, I would suggest that we pursue 2 courses of action. One is, let's contact the MMA, you know, with, I don't know, either Bob or David generally writes this up, and, you know, Danielle sends it to them, and then we get some input back. But at the same time that we're doing that, the subdivision ordinance does tell us what we're supposed to do, and that is, we need to go through the preliminary plan for a major subdivision for Firefly Ridge. And that means that we can't have, you know, 8 maps here, you know, one with this parcel on it and one with that parcel on it. We're going to have to treat this like it is, here's the expansion to the subdivision, these are the 2 new lots, we go through everything. If we have to do any updated geologic surveys or water table analyses, or, you know, reviewing the septic system plans or anything like that, all the things that are in the preliminary plan for a major subdivision, we have to go through it. Then we have to have a site walk. Then we have to have a public hearing, just like we have done for all the other subdivisions. So, you know, I can't see any course of action where, you know, we wouldn't wind up doing that. So I think we have to start on it. And so that's my suggestion, that we, you know, look to the MMA for advice, but we also have to do what is in our capability to fix this.
Can I say one thing? I think that technically it would be a amended subdivision of Firefly Lane, so it's not a new subdivision.
No,
It's just an amendment.
it is amended.
And I don't know if you have, I guess, the rules apply to that, right?
Yeah,
Right.
and exactly what it tells us is that, if, if the revision involves the creation of additional lots or dwelling units, the procedures for preliminary plan approval shall be followed. If the revision involves only modifications of the approved plan without the creation of additional lots or dwelling units, the procedures for a final plan approval shall be followed. So we have to go back to Article 7 and work through the requirements for a preliminary plan for a major subdivision.
Don't I remember something in our ordinance about how we can't consider any application from someone who is in violation of the ordinance?
That's in the land use ordinance.
I guess I understand where you're going, Matt, because I understand what you're doing. I'm just having a hard time with the idea of treating it as if it hadn't already happened.
Yeah, I understand that, and with your and Matt's and David's wisdom and experience, if we really should not, turn back the time clock and treat this as if, like it says here, going through the preliminary plan for a subdivision, major subdivision, then we won't, but I'm just being very practical. I'm thinking about Glenn and the abutters and the other people that really need to have us go through this and, hold the builders and the developers to the performance standards for a major subdivision for the changes that are happening. And we're not gonna know what all the abutters or residents' issues are until we go through that and have the site walk and the public hearing. I think that's what they're depending on us for.
I'm not a member of the board, but my opinion would be, what would be different, or my question would be, what would be different if the subdivision owner of the mother lot had come in with a request to amend the subdivision and to sell that lot? How would you treat that?
Just like we're going through, I think.
Just what you're going through.
Right.
And so, I think, Matt, what you're suggesting is correct. Things got turned around, but, you go through the process and you apply the same rules that you would if it had been done the other way around. And the thing is that may put some conditions on the sale of that lot that are pretty onerous, like, a town road standard right of way or something like that, but, something that the purchaser hadn't anticipated or whatever, I don't know, but it could have been done right and still been done the same way.
Okay. Something you said a little earlier about selling the land. We, the town, have no idea what land's being sold until the agreement is made between the seller and the owner and the finance and the surveyor. And when the surveyor registers with the registry of deeds, it goes to Debbie, and she finds out, oh, we have a new owner to send a tax bill to. That's when we found out that the land was sold. When somebody comes to me to build something, I have no operation, no means that involved the previous sale of land, whether it was a month ago or 3 years ago. I only know about when he wants to build something on it. Okay, in this particular case, Harris was going on the thought that the 5-year rule applied. when Gladys came to me, I was going on the thought the 5-year rule applied. I was aware there was something.
Did you not know that?
We all were not quite sure. We all had to ask MMA legal to find out for sure, was the 5-year rule, or does land travel with the same owner all the time? And that was the answer. We didn't really know for sure.
I did.
Okay.
I did.
You're an
Joe did.
Okay.
You're telling me the MMA said that the 5-year rule applies?
Does not.
No, does not.
So, how did we issue a building permit?
Because he thought it did apply.
By error.
You're gonna,
So you got your MMA answer after the building permit was?
A year or so.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I didn't understand.
About a year and a half after, or a year after.
That's what I did not
Yeah.
understand what you
Okay.
just said.
Okay. Now,
So we already know from MMA that.
now, just as an opinion, changes, shifting gears a little bit. How do we solve this addition, modification to subdivision? You know, well, we know it's a simple situation, but we do have rules we have to follow.
That's what makes
How
it not a
complicated
simple
is it?
situation.
I think we can go through the steps, and the ones that are negligible, have a discussion and vote. Should we handle it, or should we put that aside and continue on with the next step?
We will certainly do that.
Okay.
There may be some things from the original subdivision that can be applied to this, and there may be some new things. But, it seems like, you know, the decision tree here is, we either stop everything, go to the MMA and to our lawyer, our town lawyer, and put it all back on, Bill and Nancy Harris for the, unoriginal sin of, you know, selling a property to somebody and not coming before the board, with a revision to the subdivision, because it would have, even been too late if, we did that when you issued a building permit. The horse has already left the barn. So, we could either stop everything and see what the MMA and our town lawyers say about, how do we hold, the Harrises accountable, and how do we move forward. That's option one. Okay? Option two is we go to the MMA and ask them their advice, but at the same time, we recognize that we need to fix things, and we start working through the preliminary plan for a major subdivision. And, I'm just one voice, on the board. I made my, recommendation. I only have one other suggestion, and that is that, I want to ask a question, Wes. What activity reports do you produce? How do the selectmen and the planning board know what you're doing and what building permits you've issued?
I send a report, copies of every permit I write every month to the selectman's office. And basically Ben Thompson gets them so he can use them to assess.
Okay.
That's the chain of communication.
All right. So I have a suggestion and a recommendation that it's possible that we could have gotten on top of this problem earlier if building permits and other permits that you issue are also made available to the planning board. Not that you're asking for permission or anything like that, but just cross communication. Because somebody on the planning board may have said, oh, there's a new lot in Firefly, and there's a building permit there. We didn't go through a revision of the subdivision.
you know, David or Joe might have caught that, and then we get on top of things sooner.
That's probably a good avenue to investigate and implement, start following. But, you know, the time I'm here, there was only one other, I think it could have been a similar situation. And when I took the position, there was a scratched out note in the pages by Dan Hill saying, there was a subdivision, proposed over on Carl Burnell Road, and so on. Don't make lots out there. When I had somebody approach me, I approached Norm Blake, who had the background history. He said that one lot is okay. That's it. So that happened in a different way. So it's very rare, very seldom, but it does happen.
Yeah. So,
You're not talking about Norm Blake in this instance, right? You're talking about Norm Blake in another instance?
Yeah.
On Cobble Road?
Yeah, we had a subdivision out there.
No, I know, I just making sure I knew what he was saying. Sometimes it's hard for me to understand where he's
So
coming from.
other than that, as I previously said, there's no way the town knows when something, the land has been.
Right, no, I get that.
When a person comes for a building permit, I require them to have a copy of the deed for me, to demonstrate that they do own the land, and they need a permit, a design for the septic system to determine that the land will accept waste. Those two things are required before I write out a permit. So there is a little, you know, check balance there, but perhaps there's a need to.
the concept here is that we are stronger and smarter together as a team, than working independently. Okay. David?
I mean, from my perspective, this falls back on the landowner, and because when you do a deed in the subdivision, my understanding is you're required by law to reference the subdivision, the plan document. And if you don't, then you've unlawfully transferred property, and, you know, you can be sued for that. I mean, that's basic stuff. So if the deed that he looked at didn't have the reference to the subdivision, it goes back to the person who sold the property. And I just like, again, it's not our job to fix these problems. If somebody bought a piece of property in a subdivision and they didn't know it was in a subdivision, that's them looking at the person who sold it to them. Like, we shouldn't fix these problems. Like, we should say, you bought something you didn't know had restrictions. That's on the person you bought it from. It's not on us to try to fix the problem. Because rules.
You are making a case on the decision tree, you're making a case for option one, where we go to MMA and the town lawyer before we do anything ourselves, because we have to know, we could be trying to fix something and compounding a bad title situation or something.
Would it be going too far, David, to ask to see a copy of the deed that was transferred, or do you think we should?
I think they should totally submit that. I mean, I think it's, what I would say is that it should be on the landowners to show that this was all done above board. And, you know, they should be proving to us they didn't screw up. In other words, that the deeds were done properly, that they got the proper permits, which we know they didn't, and then we can make a determination of how bad this is. I don't know, I mean, you know, maybe this is the wrong hill for me to be climbing up and staking my flag on, but it's just, you know, every time something comes to us in the past couple of years, it comes to us because there's a problem.
I don't know if this town is unique in this situation.
Oh, I'm sure it's not.
But, I do think that there's things that we could do better, maybe avoid it, and.
But I don't think we're doing it better.
No, we're not doing it better.
Right.
And, not
Unfortunately for these people, for me to feel like I'm a board member and actually count,
Right.
I feel like I have to put my foot down on this particular instance.
Yeah,
Because of this, because of the situation.
I have a course of action for us, okay? One, between David and Bob, write to MMA or the town lawyer and get a legal assessment of, what the planning board should do or what we have to get from the landowner. Okay, you want?
Well, what's the question, you're the one that raised it first, what's the question you want answered?
If what happened was legal or not, which we know it isn't, but that's.
Well,
Whether it's on the deed or not, the real issue is that he didn't come to get the subdivision amended.
Correct.
That's the issue.
So if a subdivision exists and the owner of the subdivision unlawfully sells to unlawfully divide a parcel.
I wouldn't say unlawfully, I would say that, you know, sells it before, a revision to approved plans.
So,
I kind of like unlawful because it's what it is.
so it's in violation of the ordinance.
In violation of the ordinance. Yeah. I guess, I don't know how you put this, David, but my thinking was, tell us what other people do in this situation.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, I'm not saying that there's no wiggle room or there's no bending room, but I feel like most of the town people, if they understood the situation, they would feel the same way I do.
Well, they'd say, why can't I do it?
Exactly, well, that's just it.
Well, no, why don't I do it?
Right.
Why don't I do it?
Right.
Why don't I do it, and then I'll come to the town and ask for, instead of permission, I'll ask for forgiveness.
Right.
That's what I feel, maybe that's the best way to put it. I feel like everybody's coming to us and saying, I don't really care what you say, I just ask you for forgiveness of what I did. And we don't deny anybody.
I can tell you that this is the same thing I've seen, since the beginning of my term, serving as a selectman. It's subdivision problems over and over and over again. And
There's other problems too, but yeah.
And I've seen it from the point of view of the seller selling a piece and not getting permission. I've seen it from attorneys advising people that they can subdivide when they shouldn't have. And in every case, it's just what you said, David, is board of, the planning board eventually goes, okay, how do we fix it? And what you do is you impose terms on those situations. Quite often it's terms that the people involved don't like, but those are the terms that you impose. And, I don't know if it's the right thing to do, but.
No, I think we just need to.
It's like we've got laws against speeding, and we've got policemen out there to stop people, right? Because even though it's against the law, they still do it.
No.
Okay, so while we are doing this and writing it up, I believe that there is one thing that we can proactively do, and it's not going through all of Article 7 or anything, but we can get more of the information we need, and the subdivision ordinance guides us in this regard. 9.2, submissions. The applicant shall submit a copy of the approved plan as well as 3 copies of the proposed revisions, not piecemeal, proposed revisions in a complete sense. The application shall also include enough supporting information to allow the board to make a determination that the proposed revisions meet the standards of these regulations and the criteria of the statute. The revised plan shall indicate that it is the revision of a previously approved and recorded plan and shall show the title of the subdivision in the book and page or cabinet and sheet on which the original plan is recorded at the Registry of Deeds. And I would think in this case, we would include the titles of the land that were sold. So I think we can at least get this submission as laid out in Article 9, revisions to approved plans, so that we have more information. Between that information and what we get from MMA or the lawyers, we'll have a clearer path to move forward. Does that make sense? You wouldn't even do that.
Well, I need to hear legal advice.
Can I just go on to your thing about the cops and the speeding?
Right.
So when somebody speeds, that's their personal choice. They know they're not supposed to, they do it anyway. This type of situation, we have several professionals that get paid. We don't, but this situation has several professionals that get paid to do this correctly. And there's a title company that didn't do something right. I mean, there's a lot of people that got paid money and it still got done incorrectly. Or it still violated the ordinance.
Yep.
So it's a little different than.
I know, and it's frustrating.
It's very frustrating, because it
How about
doesn't
this?
seem to be getting better.
How about this? If a 7-parcel subdivision exists, and the landowner subdivides one of the 7 parcels, which is an 80-acre plus or minus parcel, into 3 new parcels and sells them, one of which is sold to an owner of one of the 6 remaining parcels. The owner then comes to the planning board asking to create an amendment to the subdivision to allow the
2 of the 3 were sold, because the part of the mother lot still exists, unsold.
And so 2 of them. And it comes with an amendment to the subdivision to allow the 3 lots to be created and 2 of them sold. It's a little rough, but can the planning board entertain the owner's application? Is that what you want to know?
Yeah, I was very impressed by David saying that the deed has to state that it's in the subdivision. That just, I mean.
That's my understanding. I mean, like every time when we've done it, yeah, I mean, that's my understanding. I don't.
That is something, if you're just gonna say it's your understanding, and I understand lawyers.
Because I want to say,
I want to hear MMA legal tell us that was wrong. I mean, I want to know more about what has been done that's not right, but I want to know what other people have done in this situation. Matt and David, you guys have brought me over from being accommodative.
It's nice to be that way, but it's getting out of hand. And I feel bad for you, because you're the one that, you're that person that we find kind of.
I've asked David Blaze, the owner, many times over this. This may be a huge issue with it. And
if this was Gorham or someplace like that, it would be a huge issue.
yeah.
In Baldwin, up until, I can't say up until, we've probably had big issues before, but we need to start thinking a little more that way, because 25 years from now, this is going to be Gorham.
Well, and people are taking advantage of it.
People are taking advantage.
There's no question in my mind that people walk into Baldwin and think we're a bunch of fools.
You may be, but we need to remedy it. one way or the other. I think we should definitely send out, I think David Straw should communicate with MMA and get a response from MMA that he can print out and we can all see.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think I'll send the question to Bob, and Bob can, because the selectmen and Danielle and I don't always see eye to eye on how the question is
But
phrased.
the town of Baldwin pays MMA for us to be able to communicate with them as well, correct?
Yeah,
The
yeah.
town pays MMA money so that the planning board can communicate with them, not just the
$11,000
selectmen.
a year,
Huh?
$11,000.
Not just the selectmen. So I guess I don't feel,
About
I don't
2
have a
minutes of
problem
lawyer's
with David.
time.
No, but I'm just telling you that the best approach is to do it through the selectmen. It's a better approach, just trust me.
Okay, I trust you.
We've gone down this road before, it's just better to
At
do
the
it.
titles for those two properties?
Yeah, I wrote up the deed description, but I don't remember if I put being portion of lot 7 or portion of Bill and Harris. I mean, that's, it's,
Let's take a look at them. Are there any other, comments or insights, Dick, Wes, Selectmen? Okay. So we're pretty much going with, option 1 here. We'll, get the, legal perspective and then, have to, hopefully we get that by our next meeting on December 9th, or before the next meeting on December 9th, and, be able to, meet again on December 9th and talk about, what we do and where we go.
Can I say one more thing?
Yeah.
I hope everybody has a great Thanksgiving.
We've gotten to the point where we're going to ask my new legal, I would like to get back to the question again is, how do we fix it?
We don't know
This
yet.
issue, huh?
We don't know yet.
Well, we can fix some of our processes in time. And I suggested a while ago that we build a map with all the subdivisions on it, and I can now put Firefly Lane on it.
There you go.
I agree with that.
But I don't, that doesn't solve the problem for the next guy. And so I know we've got a couple other subdivisions, but I can't just look at a map and go, I know.
I think
But
we can
there's
look.
some people here that can do it.
If you start, Bob.
I think you can look at a tax map though, if you
There's
know.
some people here who know a lot about.
Right, right.
subdivisions.
Yeah, so you bring the map here and we'll color in some,
Good.
you'll color in some, and,
Good.
you know,
Well, like
Rex
in
will do
this
some.
instance here, when somebody came for a building permit, I mean, if, all you have to do is look at a tax map and you can see that that's been subdivided, I mean, there's a good chance that it was subdivided, let's put it that way. If it was one lot and then they wanted one piece off of that, maybe that wouldn't be a red flag, but if you saw that the property 26, and you saw 6 or 7 A's, B's, C's, D's, and then you see that same lot, there's another piece off of that, that's a red flag to me.
There's plenty of subdivisions out there, you know, where you divide off, say, 5, 6 lots, and then you have the rest of 100 acres or whatever,
Right.
and it's not numbered. It's not numbered at all.
These are.
But that one is,
Yeah.
that one is, but there's plenty of
That's what I'm saying,
subdivisions.
you can't catch, maybe you can't catch every single one.
Right, but I mean-
That would be a red flag for me.
If there was another, you know, say another 5 lot subdivision somewhere, and it's not numbered, then I don't believe it comes under the ordinance that if you develop the rest of the 80 acres, you don't have to go through.
Right, but you could flip through the tax map and see, you know,
Right.
if there's 3 or so parcels that look, even 2 parcels that look similar next to each other, that would be a red flag. There's probably only 20 of those circumstances in the town of Baldwin. Of those 20, you could probably find 5 subdivisions.
I'll tell you, I started the process on my next and I was, said, where do I go for my data? And, I'll start.
That's right.
Yep. So just town maps, tax maps.
Tax map,
Try to start calling them. And I don't know that it's gonna be the answer, and I don't know that that's
you're gonna look at some and you're gonna go say, oh, look at the piece of property that my family owns in North Baldwin, there's probably 5 lots out of that mother lot. But they were sold one every 5 years, or they were sold at 2 and a butter already, or, so that, that's an instance where it's really not a subdivision, a major subdivision. But when you got something like Firefly Lane and you look at that tax map, you're like, it's got cul-de-sac, that looking thing, I mean, it's obviously been subdivided.
I didn't know you lived in a subdivision, does that say it on your deed? Which we now know we have to do.
I've never heard of that one, but I'm not gonna say it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Well, all the land I deal with are lots that are sold from one person to the other. I don't know when they're sold, but the lot dimension has never been changed, it's the same lot. It's just changing.
The reason I say it's a
Ours is
subdivision
probably
because
I have a hard time understanding what you're saying. when
It
you
was
say
approved
that.
by the planning board.
All the
So
land
that's in the
I've dealt
deed.
with
No, it's on
is
the.
sold from one owner to another
Oh, on the plan?
without
It's not in the
changing.
deed, but it's on the.
Right, there's nothing
Plan
in
is filed.
There's nothing that you could have done to stop the sale of land. I totally agree with that. But when you issue a building permit, and I assume did you look at the tax map when you issued that building permit?
I looked at the tax map, but I particularly looked at the deed, just to see if the name that the land was sold to is the same name as the person coming for the permit.
So you did look at the tax map?
Yeah.
Okay.
Since that lot across the street was a mistake, a few of them, now I have diced out the directions and about 3 in my head so far. That's not necessary, just make sure that the person coming for a permit owns the land.
What's the name of your subdivision?
It doesn't have a name on it. There's a name on the drawing, and it says Mary Irwin, I think, who was my aunt. And I found the reference to the drawing in one of the transfers that was done by the lawyer that sold me a half acre and sold a half acre of my property, so we did some line shifts. But that's how I found it. Of course, this was in 1988, so I think things were a little bit differently done, and it was just all on one sheet of paper. It's not whole.
In one sheet of paper with the Senate planning board signatures on it?
Yeah. And it's got my uncle who did the surveying and laid it out, he's got his stamp on it, and it's all signed by everybody, dated and everything.
Yeah.
Lot 1, 2, 3.
And where'd you find that?
It was in the registry of deeds.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say, I think if we go to the registry of deeds, you could probably, that's where I'm going right now, registry of deeds, because they have, you have to file the subdivision plan with the registry of deeds, right? That's.
The original one is there, and plus
Yeah.
the amended one that when Joe got the right of way to his properties recorded.
So is that in the searchable, is that
Yeah,
in the
it's right there.
searchable? So can you search Baldwin and subdivision and?
No, you would probably put Firefly Lane, and you'd probably come right up.
Yeah, I wonder if you can,
Just do a query on subdivision.
So it's right on the, you go over the plans on the Cumberland County Registry of Deeds and just put Firefly Lane, put LN for lane, and it'll come up.
so the subdivision plan, Baldwin, search. Last name's required, yeah, okay, thank you.
Yeah, you have to go over into the plan section, and you can.
No, I'm there, yeah, no, I'm there.
Oh, you got it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's just, so there's a subdivision category of documents.
Right.
And you can do Baldwin, hit search, and it says you have to put a last name, so
Yeah.
it wouldn't give you just.
What's the last name?
Well, no, you could find that, but I thought you could find all the subdivisions
Oh,
by
yeah.
just searching that category,
Yeah.
which would answer Bob's question pretty
Right.
quickly.
No, I haven't found that, but.
So he has a plan, you gave him a plan, what he has to do?
I don't think there is a plan yet, you're gonna wait
No,
for
because
advice.
the only thing I mean, I suggested that we, get the submissions, but, the sense was that, we shouldn't do, anything, in terms of working on a cure until we get the legal perspective.
We should be, we should be able to do that fairly quickly.
I'll send you the question I have.
Yeah.
So we should plan on doing it in the next meeting, basically.
We will have this on the agenda for December 9th, and, see where we go.
Okay.
Is that it? What's in there?
Do we move to adjourn at this point, or did you have anything else?